really nice Montana blue sapphire that we're going to mount in a 14 karat gold ring. So first of all, this is a wire mold. It breaks apart. You can see the channels and the pour spout on top for making wire. This goes together like this, and you want to make sure that you've got your mold lined up correctly so that the wire is round when you're done. So, and then this clamp goes on just like that. Thing I'm going to do is heat up the wire mold. And simply do that by just taking the torch to the different channels of this wire mold. I want this mold nice and hot. I'm going to put my clamp over my mold. And it's still not hot enough to burn me yet, but it's definitely warmer. Okay, and I've got my 14 karat gold right here. If you can see that well or not. Let's see if I can get a better view. So these were just little melted scrap 14 karat gold that I'm going to use to make this. Put this in my crucible right here, and we're going to heat that up. It's going to require a lot of heat, so I'm going to turn this torch up. Get my wire mold warming back up a little bit first before I start warming up the gold. Sometimes that happens. Make a small adjustment there. Okay, I've begun to melt the gold into a single piece or single bubble. I didn't get it all to pour down. I'm just going to have to see what I got here in the mold. You can't pour it twice. I'm hoping I have enough to make a band. Looks like I do. So it didn't drop all the way down, but it looks like I'm going to get a nice round wire shaped piece of gold to make my ring out of. So it was a success. Take my water and cool this off. And there we go. 14 karat gold bar to make my ring out of. So I'm back here by my Greenstone rolling mill. I'm going to take this piece of gold that we just formed in our mold, and I'm going to roll out a band. Okay, so now I've got my wire, my gold wire rolled out, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this just a little bit through the flat part of my Greenstone roller, and what that's going to do is it's going to sort of make a rounded rectangle shape for my ring stock. So I've got a measurement that I took off of my mandrel with just a sticky note, and this is a measurement that I wanted for my ring. And so I just make sure that I have ample material here to make the ring with. So I'll just take my measurement, and as you can see, I've got enough to cut that band and make the ring the appropriate size for my ring. So I'm back over on this side. I've got my mandrel right here, and I'm taking a measurement. So I'm just checking this measurement, make sure that this is indeed, and right there, size 7. So just verifying the size. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my flush cutters, and I'm going to cut a flush end on the end of this gold wire that I just rolled out. And take my file that edge square. I'll take my measurement and measure where to cut the other end at. This was a size 7, so now on this cut that I'm going to make here, I'm just going to cut this a little bit long, because by the time you roll this in a circle and make your ring, it usually shrinks. Now we just rolled this out with our Greenstone roller, and it's just work hardened from the roller. So what I've got to do is I've got to heat this up, and I've got to soften this gold again. And that'll make it just easier to work with. And what can happen is if it's not softened, you can have the ring can actually break on you as you bring it into shape. So I'm going to cycle this twice. Just make sure it's really soft. So I dropped it in my water to cool that off rapidly. And now I've got a soft band. And I'm gonna just file this smooth. I've got some tags that are kind of hanging off the side of this. Just gonna make the end of this flush. My band ready to shape into a band. Okay, again, I'm just going to start making my band here, and I'm going to start this out at maybe the 4 section on my mandrel, the size 4, and that's going to give me a shape kind of like a candy cane to start out with. Just take my mallet, start bending those. And what you're looking for here is you're trying to just work this band into a ring, and it'll be kind of an oval at this point. And all you're trying to do is just get these 2 edges to meet up nicely for soldering. So this one went pretty well. Just going to use the mallet. Okay. What I'm going to do is take my file, and I'm going to file where I'm going to solder, which is right here. I'm going to solder this joint together right here. And so what I've got to have is I've just got to have a clean surface with no black residue on it, fire scale. And that'll just make my joint nice. Got a little bit of a tag here. Okay, just like that. So this is ready to solder now. I'm going to use my graphite block. I noticed that this just needed a little bit more refining on this joint, so I'm going to use my 600 grit sander Dremel and just make that joint nice and polished. So that looks a little better. Now what I do sometimes, I use a file in this end of the file, and that kind of holds the ring upright in that groove. A lot of times it's just using what you have in front of you to make your soldering go well. So just using my handy flux here, and I'm going to drop some flux right on my joint. Okay, and it's important to have your ring as level as possible so that the solder flows evenly to both sides. Today I'm going to be using a medium 14 karat gold solder. I just want to join this ring right at the joint there. I'm going to heat this gold ring up until I see the color of the metal start to change to kind of a light pink, and then I know it's ready to take the solder. Okay, just like that. I'm going to cool my ring off. Then I'm going to slide it on my mandrel and give this ring its round shape again here. So this one is looking really good. Got some burrs here that I'd like to get rid of. I'd like to get this ring in a perfect round symmetrical shape before I go to the next step here. That looks a lot better. So there's our ring. Okay, so here I'm over on my flat lap here, and what I'm going to do is there's some burring on this ring. I'm just going to make this nice and smooth and presentable. So now I've got my ring pretty much cleaned up. It looks pretty good. Right at my solder joint, what I'm going to do is make a flat spot for my setting to set on. So this is just this is more of a visual thing. You want to just watch the ring and make sure that you're perpendicular to the flat lap. so now I've got it pretty much done. See if I can get where I can see it. So you can see just a small flat spot on top of that band now, and what that's going to do is it's going to serve as the platform for our setting. Back over here, this is my soldering bench again. I've got my ring, and that's all completely done. And what I've got here is my finding. This is just a 4-prong. It's a well-made basket setting. I'm going to pull this off here. And so, and the sapphire sitting inside, I just kept them together just so I could keep track of. So before I get started, just got my 2 pieces here, the setting and the ring band that I'm going to put together. And I've got my setting here, and I've got it upside down right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand off the area where it's going to make contact with the band. And this is going to just provide a clean surface can be put to. So my ring is already cleaned up. There's no carbon, no residue, and just from the flat sander. So right now I'm just going to orientate the ring the way I'd like to have it soldered. I'm just going to use my handy flux right here again. I usually use just like an applicating rod. It's just a plastic rod that I use. And this is an important part, that you don't overuse this flux paste, but you want to put the flux paste exactly where you want that solder to be. In this case, I want it down the sides of the band, just over the shoulder of that flat spot that I made. And I don't want to have a lot of extra paste on here because it'll cause that ring to move when I heat it up. I'm going to put a little bit of flux paste on my setting as well. Now what I'm going to use here is I'm just going to use this, it's kind of like the third arm, if you will. I've modified the end of it so that it doesn't mar and scratch up the gold when I use it. But I'm just going to use that to hold this in a perfect place, because the solder tends to make this, the flux paste tends to move your band around quite a bit. This is just a way to make this stay exactly where you put it while you're soldering. This is an important part. You don't want to rush either, because it can make the difference between a good piece and a great piece, having it perfectly centered and perfectly attached to the band. So this piece looks ready to go. Again, I'm going to use a medium solder, and this is a graphite block, and the graphite pulls the heat down out of the piece you're working with. And what that does is it allows you to get the whole piece hot enough and not melt your smaller components. So I'm going to start on the top, and I'm just going to heat the top up. I noticed I'm just a little bit off-centered here. I'm just going to scoot this over just a tap. Now there's already a little bit of solder on the top of that band where we joined it, so a lot of times you can get flow just out of that solder, and that's just kind of enough to tack it down. all you're doing is just adding a little bit more. And I think we've got it. Just going to cool this off. It's a little wet. It's absolutely perfect. It went on great. And but I can see it's just a little bit tipped. So I'm just going to take my flat, actually my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to tweak that just a little bit. I'm just going to make a small adjustment so that this sits perfectly straight up and down, and here we have it. Just going to pull the ring out of the pickle bath here. Take a look at it. Sometimes you have to use a towel and kind of aggressively remove some of that fire scale. So there's the ring. The band turned out really well. The solder joints turned out really good. When you pull it out of the pickle bath, you can really kind of tell it's a place where you can really check your work because the solder lines really show up. This particular ring, I'm going to have to, I got a little bit of extra solder flow that went kind of on the top shoulder there of the band. I'm just going to remove some of that solder so that we have an even tone of gold, especially where it shows, like right on the top. The key with that tool is to keep it moving, otherwise you'll make flat spots on your band. But there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this band and I'm going to fully polish it, basically ready for sale before I set the sapphire in the setting. So to begin that process, I'm going to take my 400 grit sander on my Dremel and I'm just going to sand this ring perfectly smooth. Eliminate all of the different burring, any marks that are left on the band. And this is a fine-tuning step. Now I'll take my my wire brush wheel. Just going to move this at a high speed. This is more of a finishing step. And this is just going to put that final polish on this before moving to my buffing wheel. Key with these is light pressure. Okay, this ring is polished and looks very nice. Turned out very well, and it's ready to set the sapphire in the setting. So first thing I'll do is I'll just set the stone in the setting, and what I'll do is I'll just center the stone and just get a look for how I want the stone to finish out inside that setting. So, especially with like a pear-shaped one, you just want to make sure that when you begin to bring the prongs in and seat the prongs, that the stone is in the middle, exactly where you want it. And what I'll do is I'll just start on opposing sides like this, and I'll make sure I'm moving the prongs equally. And I won't make contact with the stone quite yet. What I'm doing is I'm just bringing the prongs together, and I'm seating the stone exactly in the middle, not bringing one prong more than another. And I'm alternating directions. Until I have the stone perfectly centered and I have contact with all 4 prongs on the edge. Just like that. All right, once I have all 4 prongs moved into the center, I've got contact with the stone, then I'll begin to bring the prongs down and seat them on the stone. And I usually work in opposites, so if I put one prong down, I go to the opposite side, and I bring the opposite prong down. Same concept, just keeping the stone in the middle. And make sure too that you're not torquing your setting when you're using your pliers. Once I've got the prongs over top of the sapphire sitting directly in the middle, I'll use my prong pusher and with moderate pressure push down on the prong. And I'll usually hold this up to the light and look through the setting to see if there's any light showing underneath the prongs. And this one's looking really good. Just want to make sure I've got contact on the top of the stone. I usually it's kind of a feel thing, but I kind of bounce the pliers and just sort of watch the setting, because gold has a tendency to have a little bit more memory than, say, platinum does. And then a lot of times I'll just brush my finger across the stone to see if I can feel any sort of movement or hear any sort of movement in the setting. And so this one is set well. It turned out very nicely. It's quite a sparkly gem. Beautiful Montana sapphire. Brilliant cut. Outstanding piece. Well, it's a lot of fun to share this ring making experience with you. And here's the ring. I ended up putting the wire brush on it and just kind of cleaning up the prongs just a little bit more. But if you like the video, please hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to share more of these videos with you. And until next time.